everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps, and this is lesson 8 of Learn to Crochet. Today I'm going to show you how to make a granny square. In our previous lessons we made this swatch, which was just a square that was made in rows by going back and forth, and then we did an outside edge, a little border on the outside. The granny square is done a little bit differently. To do a granny square, we're actually going to start in the center of the square and work around and around in what's called rounds instead of rows. And when we do that, what happens is that the top of our stitches, these nice little V shapes, are always all the way around because we're working all the way around. So it's like working an edging with every row, and you don't have to do a separate edging. So let's see how we start that. First, what we're going to do is make a circle to start out with in the center. We start the same way that we did with the other square, with a slip knot to get a loop onto our hook. So twist your yarn, pull it through to make a slip knot. Okay, and if you guys don't remember the techniques for the stitches and the slip knots, go back and look at some of the earlier Learn to Crochet videos, and you'll see all the stitches that we're going to use today. There's nothing new as far as stitches. It's just different in how we arrange them today. So I make a slip knot and I put it on my hook and I snug it up, but not too snug. Okay, I want it to slide around easily because I'm going to have to work back into it later. So to make the circle for the center, we're going to use 4 chains and loop them around to make a circle. So let's chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're going to use that to make a circle. We're going to loop it around. With a chain 4, and because of the way we're working the square, it really doesn't matter if this one gets a little twisted, but it's good practice to make sure whenever you're joining a chain in a circle, not to let it twist before you join it. Like if you let it twist and then join it here, you're going to have that twist in your circle all the time, which again doesn't matter for this pattern, but for a lot of other patterns it really will matter. So it's good practice to make sure that your chain is nice and straight before you join it. So to join, what we're going to do is do a slip stitch right into that very first chain. So insert your hook into the chain, get your tail out of the way. Okay, insert your hook into the chain, yarn over and pull through both loops. Okay, if you remember, that's how we do a slip stitch. Now you've got a joined circle, and right in the center here is the hole that we created, and that's where we're going to work all of our stitches for the first round. So let's start the first round. We're going to be doing this whole square in double crochets, and a double crochet, if you remember, is about 3 chains tall. So let's start by chaining 3 to get up to the height of our first stitch. 1, 2, 3. And remember, with a double crochet, when we start with a chain 3, we count that as a stitch. So this is our first double crochet. What we're going to do is work 4 sets of 3 double crochets into the center of this circle. And we're going to separate those with chain 2 spaces. So let's do our first set of 3 double crochet. And that would be, that's 1, so yarn over, find the center of that circle. Remember, don't go into the stitches, but you want the total dead center of the circle like that. If you go like this, you should see a big hole in the center, okay? That is where you want to stick your hook. So stick your hook in there, not in a stitch, in there. Yarn over and pull up a loop just like you would for a normal double crochet, and then finish your stitch like you normally would. And if you've done it in the right place, you should see that that hole opens up, and this stitch should be able to slide around the whole circle wherever you want it to go. Snug it up against where your first stitch is, because that's where we want it, and do 1 more. So the way this would read in a pattern, so far what we've done, and I'm telling you so that when you read a pattern you can compare and see what that's like in real life. What this pattern would say so far is chain 4 and join to form a ring. Okay, then it would say chain 3, 2 DC, DC means double crochet, in center of ring or in center of circle. Okay, now we're going to chain 2 to make a chain 2 space, and then we're going to do 3 double crochets, so 3 DC into the center of the same circle. So 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. So the pattern is going to say chain 2, 3 double crochets in center of circle, repeat 2 more times, or work 3 times, or chain 2, 3 double crochets 3 times in center of circle. This was 1 time, so there's 1. Now let's do it again. Chain 2 and then 3 double crochets, that's 2. Okay, and now let's do it a 3rd time. Chain 2 and then 3 double crochets in the center. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we've got 3 double crochets, and the reason it didn't say to do that 4 times is because this first group is a little bit different with that chain 3. So we already had the first group, we just needed to do it 3 more times. So now our pattern has said chain 3, 2 double crochet, and then in brackets it will say chain 2, 3 double crochet 3 times in the center of this, all in the center of the same circle. Okay, and then you finish it off by working chain 2, because we needed that chain 2 space in between these 2 groups, and we join to the first stitch. And remember, our first stitch is actually 3 double crochets, so that is 1, 2, 3 double crochets. You're going to join to the 3rd double crochet. You're not joining here. This is our 2nd stitch. Okay, so you're not going in here. You're going in here, which is the 3rd chain of our double crochet. Hang on, let me get that again. 1, 2, 3. So into the 3rd chain of your double crochet. It's a minor difference, but it really does make a difference. So now we're joined in the top of that first stitch. And you can see what we have on our first round is 4 chain 3 groups, 4 3 double crochet groups with 4 chain 2 spaces in the corners. Okay, now for the future rounds, every time we get to a corner, we're going to work exactly what's in this corner, which is 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. That's going to be our corner group. Every corner space is going to have a chain 2 in it, and that's how you know when you're at the corners. So let's do our 2nd round. And here is where I do this a little bit differently than other people. And there's raging debates over which is better. Some people prefer one way, some people prefer another. What a lot of people like to do is they like to start their next round here and just keep going around and around and around this way without ever turning their work, which is great because it makes the front of you're always working on the right side, so you're always seeing the front of the stitches. So that's great. But what happens is with every round, it shifts about a half a stitch, and I'm not going to get into details as to why, but it shifts ever so slightly with every single round. So you end up getting kind of a corkscrew effect where it's just twisting just ever so slightly with every round. And that drives me absolutely bonkers. I like my things to line up nice and straight. So I always turn my rounds, and they're still called rounds. It's just called turned rounds. So we're turning our rounds. And in order to do that, and it's just like when we turned our rows, right? So in order to do that, we just literally turn our work around. Okay, now I want my first stitches to be in the middle of this corner because I want to always stay in the corner when I'm starting. So to get back into the corner, I'm going to stick my hook in the corner, yarn over and pull through, just do a slip stitch to put myself nicely into the center of that corner. Okay, now we're ready to start round 2. And to start round 2, what we're going to do is again chain 3 to get up to the height of our stitch. And we're in the middle of the corner, so we're first going to do this chain 3 group, and when we come back around we'll get to that chain, or sorry, not chain 3. We're first going to do this 3 double crochet group, and then when we get back around we're going to do this 3 double crochet group. So here's the first double crochet, 2 and 3. Okay, so that is our first double crochet group of the corner, and we always start with that. We're starting basically like right here in this round, and you'll see that as we get around. Now in this round, it's different because we have these groups of 3 double crochets that we have to get across to get to the next corner. So how do we do that? Well, this corner is going to fan out a little bit, and this corner is going to fan out a little bit. So we don't need 3 chains to get across this. We only need 1 chain. So let's do 1 chain to get across our 3 double crochet group. And for the whole remainder of the square, anytime you need to get across from one chain space to another chain space, when you need to cross over a 3 double crochet group, you're going to do that by chaining 1. So we've done our 3 double crochet and we chained 1, and now we're at this corner. We're always going to be working into chain spaces. We're never working into stitches for this pattern. So let's go into the corner, and I told you we're going to do this. We're going to do 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet in every corner. So let's do that. 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3, okay. Chain 2 for the corner. And now see, this chain 2 I'm doing just right in the corner. I'm not crossing over anything. It's just the corner space. So that's what makes the chain 2 spaces different from the chain 1 spaces, okay? Chain 2 for the corner, and then 3 double crochet right in that same corner space. So now you can see that we've got a corner here, and it looks just like this corner here, okay? So now we want to do that in all the rest of the corners. So we've got to first cross over this group to get to this corner. We do that with a chain 1. Okay, now we're in the corner. So we're going to do 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then chain 2 for our corner, and then 3 more double crochets. And again, guys, I'm doing the stitches quickly here because I'm trying to give you an idea of the pattern. But if you need help remembering how to do these stitches, go back to some of the previous lessons in the Learn to Crochet series, and you will see how to do double crochets and chains and all of that. Okay, so I've got this corner done. Now I need to get to this corner, which means I have to cross over this group. How do we cross over a group? Chain 1. Okay, now I'm back in the corner. 3 double crochets. Right, chain 2 for the corner space, and 3 double crochets. Now I'm coming to my beginning corner, and when you read it in a pattern, it's either going to say something like same space as starting, or beginning space, or beginning corner, something like that, okay? Because we're actually going to come back and work into that same space that we started in. So first we have to cross over this group, and how do we do that? With a chain 1. And now we get back to this corner. And you see every corner has 2 groups of 3 double crochets with a chain 2 space in between. In this corner we've just done one of the groups, so we have to do the other group, which is 3 double crochets. Whoops. And then we have to do the chain 2 space for the corner, so chain 2. And now we join it, and remember, join into the 3rd chain, not into the 2nd stitch there. So join into the 3rd chain at the top of that chain 3, and we are finished with our 2nd round. So here you can see we are on the wrong side of the work compared to where our first round was. So you can see these stitches look a little bit different than these ones. And that's the argument for doing continuous, going around in the same direction. But I prefer the nice even look without the twisting, so this is the way I do it. So now if we look at our square, in our 4 corners we have chain 2 spaces, okay? And then across the sides we have these new chain 1 spaces. So when we work around again, when we get to these chain 1 spaces at the sides, we're just going to work one group of 3 double crochet, just like this one, right into this space here. Okay, our corners are still going to look like they do here, with one group of 3 double crochet, a chain 2, and then another group of 3 double crochet. And that's the basis of the pattern. The things you have to remember to make a granny square. In every corner, you're working a corner, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. In every chain 1 space along the side, you're working just one group of 3 double crochet. And every time you need to cross over a group to get to the next space, you put in a chain 1. If you do those 3 things, you can make a granny square of any size that you want to. So let's look at this third row. We're turning our work. We're slip stitching to get into the center of that corner space. And we start with just the first group of the corner so that we stay centered in that corner space. So chain 3 and 2 double crochet. Okay, that's our first group of 3. And we'll come back and work the second group of 3 in that, just like we did on this corner. Okay, now we got to get across this group, so we chain 1. And that takes us to the next space where we're on the side. It's just a chain 1 space, so we're going to work 3 double crochet, and that's it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we got to get across this group, so we chain 1. And that puts us in a corner. What do we do in a corner? 3 double crochets, 2 and 3, and then we chain 2 for the corner space and do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And that is our corner in the corner. Now we got to get across another group, so we chain 1, and that takes us to a chain 1 space that's along the side. So we put 3 double crochets into that. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, chain 1 to get across this group puts us in a corner. 3 double crochets, 3. Whoops, I have a knot here. Pause for a second, I'll come right back after I take this knot out. Okay, so I did my 3, and I've got to do my chain 2 for the corner and 3 more into this space. 1, 2, 3. Okay, chain 1 to get across here, 3 double crochet into the chain 1 space on the side. 1, 2, 3. Okay, chain 1 to get to the next space, and that's a corner. So 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3. Chain 2 for the corner space, and 3 double crochet in the same space. 1, 2, 3. Right? We got to get across this one, so chain 1 puts us at the side of a row. 3 double crochet, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, side of the square, not a corner, basically. And then another chain 1 to get across here. And look, we're back to our beginning corner. So we're going to work 3 double crochet in here for the second group for this corner. 2, 3. And then we have to work that last chain 2 space to connect it and make that corner space. So chain 2, find the top of your chain 3 and slip stitch to join. Okay, we have now done a basic granny square. This is just a 3-round granny square. You can keep going around and around, keep going back and forth around. The same principle is going to hold true every time. You start the row by slip stitching into the corner and doing just one of the 3 double crochet groups for that corner, because you'll finish it when you come back around. Every time you're in a chain 1 space, you do 3 double crochet. Every time you're in a chain 2 space, you do 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. And every time you need to get across from one space to the next space, you do a chain 1. That's it. That's a granny square. Now, if you want to practice this and if you want to see what it looks like in a written pattern, I have a pattern for a granny square envelope, a gift card envelope. It's a larger granny square and it's folded up to form a little envelope by folding up the corners like this, and then the top flap comes down like that. And it actually has a slight modification in one of the corners to kind of flatten it out so it's not a pointy corner. But otherwise, it's pretty much just a plain granny square. Like it's a plain granny square all the way to the end. So if you want to try that, you now have all the skills you need to make that pattern. So go ahead and give it a try. It's called Granny Square Gift Card Envelope, and I know that it's now too late for Christmas, but it still's a great gift for for birthdays and stuff like that. And it's also a great way to practice reading a pattern now that you know how to actually do the stitch, so you can compare what you're seeing in the video to what you're reading in the pattern. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this Learn to Crochet series. This is the last video in the series. But if you check out stitchesandscraps.com and look at the tutorial section, I have a whole bunch of technique tutorials that you can look at to take your skills to the next level. Again, thanks for joining me.